change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey, how are y'all doing? It's been a couple days since I made a video because I've been processing some pretty intense stuff. I had an experience on Saturday that really rocked my world, and I've been thinking, feeling, experiencing, processing since then. And one thing that I've come to learn is that every emotion has a target. You can't simply be in love. You have to be in love with someone or something. You can't simply be angry. You have to be angry at someone or with someone or at something. My sister's always calling physical objects stupid. That stupid chair was in my way and I stubbed my toe. So every emotion that you experience has a target, has a trigger. Something causes that emotion to come up in you, causes that wave to rise. There's something that the emotion is directed at. And when you're in a really traumatic, dangerous, violent, crazy experience, you know exactly what the target is. If somebody punches you and you get angry, you know what the target is. Or like on Saturday, I was in a car accident, and that's what I've been thinking about. I was very close to being killed, out of control at 60 miles an hour, spinning in circles down a very steep mountain with cars coming at me, and somehow I missed them, and still alive. But I knew what the target of my emotions were in that moment. I could see them. They're present. All right? You see somebody that you love and suddenly you're filled with joy or happiness or anxiety, you know what the target is. So when the target of your emotion is really clear or obvious, not only is it easy to understand why you're experiencing the emotion, but once that target goes away, you come right back down. So you have a wave rise, and then you go back to calm relatively quickly. So obvious targets of emotion, they're not so bad. We can handle those. But what stops us in life are the targets that we can't see. Because then we remain in a state of anxiety. We remain in a state of fear. We remain in a state of paralysis because we don't know what or where the target is. We don't even know if it's really there, and we don't know if it's ever gone because we can't see it. So what am I talking about? Well, I've got some emails I've got to write, and they're totally freaking me out. Total stress. Like those emails that you just don't want to deal with? Well, I got to deal with some. So fear, right? That's the emotion. I'm experiencing fear, anxiety. But where's the threat? Is it in my room? No, I don't see any threat in my room. It's okay, not there. How about on the computer screen? Is the computer like shocking my fingers when I touch it? No, the computer's fine. There's no threat there. What about when I answer the email? Is the person, or I look at the email, is the person giving me a death threat? No, no death threats. So where's the threat? Is it something I'm imagining? And if it is something I'm imagining, am I really clear about what I'm imagining? Am I imagining them coming to my house and shooting me or stabbing me or publicly humiliating me? Like, what is it that I'm actually fearing specifically? I don't know. I don't know why I'm afraid of answering the email. Rejection, possibly, but that's so vague. Where do you put the target? What do you shoot at? What do you run from? Fight or flight? I don't know what to fight, and I don't know where to run because I don't see where the target is. And this is where we get stuck. Because we don't ever get to come down because we're not sure what the enemy is. So this is what's happening in our brain. If the target is obvious and clear and present, your brainstem gets triggered. Danger. And then it sends a signal to the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system. And the amygdala amplifies that signal and sends out fear, threat. And that signal goes right up here to the prefrontal cortex. And you start thinking about the danger. Okay? A lot of it is going to be totally automatic. You're going to put your foot on the brake. You're going to turn the steering wheel. You're going to duck when somebody tries to hit you. But if it lasts any longer than that, you're going to be able to think about it. This part of your brain is going to start processing, and you're going to start thinking. Okay, that's what happens when the threat is external and obvious. But when you can't see it, it's because this guy, the prefrontal cortex, it's remembering things. Okay, this is where your memories are stored, right? Your hippocampus is like the keyboard that types in the memories, and your prefrontal cortex is like the hard drive where they get stored. So I'm looking at an email that I have to answer, and it's remembering me being rejected at 4 years old when I spoke in front of my kindergarten class, whatever it may have been, and it sends that signal back to the brainstem. And the brainstem says, whoop, whoop, threat. And then the amygdala says, fear, fear. And then the prefrontal cortex is getting this signal, all right? But it was an unconscious thought to begin with. It was my cognitive unconscious that initially sent that signal to the brainstem. So now when that fear signal comes forward from the amygdala and ends up in my prefrontal cortex again, it's trying to process consciously now the thought, because fear wakes you up to the moment. It's like, okay, alert, alert, get present. Cortisol wakes you up. That's why you wake up in the morning. Cortisol in your system, adrenaline wakes you up, makes you really present and really focused. So your prefrontal cortex is in a state of heightened arousal and alertness, and it's on the lookout for a threat, but it doesn't see one. And it's got to trust these guys back here, the brainstem, the amygdala, the limbic system. They're important, and it doesn't want to doubt them. So it can't see a threat, but there must be something, because these guys are setting off the alarm bells. So what it does is it avoids whatever it is that you're working on. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, it says, okay, there's a threat here somewhere. I don't know what it is yet, so let's do something else. And this is where our excuses come from. This is where our reasons for not getting into action come from. Because we don't know where the threat is, and it's like, well, there's a threat somewhere. So whatever we were trying to do is probably dangerous, so let's stop doing it. And it starts coming up with these reasons to save us, to protect us, even though it started the whole thing and it's not even aware of it. So instead of it being this nebulous, vague threat that I can't put my finger on, let's create a threat. Let's say, if I write an email to that person, they're probably going to come to my house with a gun. And that sounds silly, right? Because it is, and I know it's silly. Are they really going to do that? No. Is the person going to stab me? No. Is the person going to scream bloody murder at me if I write them an email? No. What's the worst thing they could possibly do? Not respond to me? Or respond and say, please don't email me anymore? You're annoying? Well, did I die? No. Is that nearly as bad as almost dying in a car accident? No. So let's make it bad on purpose. Let's exaggerate it. Let's make it a joke. Okay, I'm going to write this email, and somebody's going to call me in the next couple minutes and just rip my head off. All right. So the moral of the story, when you have to do something that is freaking you out and you're avoiding it and procrastinating and coming up with reasons, it's because you can't see the target of that fear. So create a target. Amplify it. Exaggerate it. Assume the worst case scenario. And then laugh about it, because that's not going to happen. Nobody's going to kill you. Nobody's going to yell at you. Nothing, life or death, is going to happen if you write that email, if you pick up the phone and make that call. It's not going to happen. And that will allow you to come back down, because you'll get to see the target. You'll coalesce. You'll take that gaseous, nebulous threat, and you'll solidify it to something you can look at and say, oh, okay, well, that's not really dangerous, so there it goes. And I come back down. What's the worst thing that can happen if I send that email? Is it death? No. Okay. Threat's gone. Onward. I hope it helps. I love you. Bye.